Sometimes it's not about fights or lies. It's about sitting next to someone you love and feeling completely alone, because the heart can break in silence. When the connection has quietly died before the relationship ends. Welcome to Broken Truth, where love meets lies, and every story reveals the pain behind the smile. Lack of emotional connection is one of the most invisible yet fatal causes of betrayal in love. When two people stop feeling seen, heard, and emotionally safe with each other, love becomes routine, a habit, not a heartbeat. One partner might still be physically present but emotionally absent, leaving the other starving for intimacy, depth, and meaning. In this emptiness, some go looking for a connection elsewhere, not always out of malice, but out of a desperate hunger to feel alive, understood, or simply not invisible. Betrayal, in such cases, becomes a symptom of emotional abandonment, the kind that no one talks about because there were no loud arguments, just a growing silence. They didn't notice it at first because loss never arrives with a loud knock. It comes in quiet sighs, in unspoken words, in the way one person looks up and the other doesn't, in the way a goodnight becomes a routine sound instead of a ritual of care. That's how it started, not with betrayal, but with absence, with presence that no longer meant anything. She used to wait for his voice, not the words, the voice, that warmth in his tone that made her feel like home wasn't a place but a person. They used to talk about silly things at 2 a.m., about dreams that made no sense, about fears that made all the sense in the world. But slowly, things shifted. The space between their words grew colder. Shorter texts, quicker goodbyes, the kind of silence that isn't peaceful, but punishing. He was still there. That was the cruel part. He came home, he answered, he smiled, but it wasn't the same. She'd say something and he'd nod. Not because he heard, but because nodding was easier than listening. They sat on the same couch, but lived in different worlds. She began to feel like a stranger to someone whose skin she once memorized. At first, she blamed herself. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe I talk too much. Maybe I expect too much. She adjusted. She watered dead flowers. She smiled through hollow evenings. She dressed up just to be noticed, cooked just to be appreciated, held back tears just to seem easy to love. But nothing changed, because you can't force someone to connect if they've already shut the doors inside their heart. He wasn't cruel. That's what made it harder. Cruelty would have given her a reason to leave, but instead he was kind, distant, but kind. Like someone who remembered how to perform care, but forgot how to feel it. He'd say, I love you, but the weight of those words had thinned out. She could feel the difference between I love you and I feel you. One was memory, the other was presence. She started noticing how much time he spent on his phone, how his laughter returned, but not with her, how his eyes lit up again, but not for her. Late night messages, locked screens, sudden showers. A glow that didn't belong to their story anymore. And then one night she asked, is there someone else? He didn't lie, but he didn't cry either. He just sighed, like someone relieved that the truth was no longer a secret, like someone who had already grieved a love while still pretending to hold it. Yes, there was someone else, and no, he hadn't meant for it to happen, but he was tired of feeling empty. With her, he said, everything felt distant, stale, predictable, like they were just going through motions. She didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't break things. She just sat there, the kind of stillness that only comes when pain is too deep to move. And in that silence, she understood. He hadn't betrayed her out of anger or even desire. He betrayed her out of absence, out of a hollow so wide inside his chest that he needed someone to echo back something, anything that felt alive. And that's what hurt most, that he was right in front of her and still went looking for connection somewhere else. She remembered every night she waited for him to talk, every time she touched him and he turned away gently, like an apology. Every smile she faked to keep things light. Every emotional need she swallowed because she didn't want to seem needy. But love isn't about needing less. It's about feeling safe to need. In the weeks that followed, she tried to make sense of it all. Friends told her he was selfish, that he should have tried harder, that she deserved better. But in her quiet moments, she just felt tired. Tired of carrying the weight of a love that asked her to shrink. Tired of wondering what she did wrong. Tired of pretending emotional abandonment isn't betrayal just because it's silent. She went through the phases: denial, anger, the lonely scrolling through old photos, the desperate questioning of self-worth. But the turning point came one evening when she stood in front of a mirror and whispered to her reflection, "You were never hard to love. You just asked to be felt, and he didn't know how." And maybe that was the beginning of her healing, not in grand declarations, not in revenge or rebound stories, but in quiet honesty, in realizing she had poured herself into a space that couldn't hold her, and accepting that sometimes betrayal isn't loud. It's the absence of intimacy, the missing heartbeat in conversations, the smile that doesn't reach the eyes. She didn't hate him. She just stopped waiting for him to return to her emotionally. She stopped shrinking her emotional needs. She stopped making excuses for a love that forgot how to feel. Because some heartbreaks don't come from the explosion. They come from the slow fading of color in a picture that once felt like forever. And sometimes the hardest thing isn't moving on from the person. It's grieving the connection that was already gone long before they said goodbye. It didn't happen all at once. Healing, she learned, isn't a grand moment of awakening. It's small decisions made in silence. It's choosing not to check their online status. It's making tea for yourself and sitting in the spot where they used to sit, not to remember them, but to reclaim it. The first thing she let go of was the question, what did I lack? Because one evening, while folding a cardigan he had left behind, she realized it was never about lack. It was about disconnection, emotional, quiet, creeping disconnection. And while it wasn't her fault, it was now her responsibility to understand what she truly needed in love and what she would never again accept in silence. She stopped romanticizing survival, because love shouldn't feel like a place you have to prove yourself to stay in. She used to think loyalty meant staying even when it hurt. Now she knew loyalty also means staying loyal to your own peace, to your own heart. So she began with small boundaries. She stopped responding to emotional crumbs from people who only reached out when it was convenient. She stopped giving more than she received. She stopped explaining her softness like it was a weakness, and she started listening, not to others, but to herself. What made her feel safe? What made her feel seen? She took long walks, not to escape the pain, but to let it breathe beside her. She wrote things down, not to remember him, but to understand herself, and slowly the story changed. She stopped being the woman who was betrayed and became the woman who outgrew what couldn't hold her. There were lonely nights, of course, nights when she missed even the broken parts of him, nights when the silence felt heavier than the truth. But this time, she didn't fight the ache. She sat with it. She treated it like a wound that deserved care, not shame. And in time, the ache softened. She began to laugh again, not the kind of laugh you perform, but the kind that surprises you. She met new people, but more importantly, she met parts of herself she had forgotten. The version of her that didn't walk on eggshells. The version of her that asked for depth, not performance. That version had always been there, just waiting to be chosen. And then one day, someone asked her, "Aren't you scared to love again?" She smiled, not because she wasn't scared, but because she finally had an answer. "I'm not scared of love," she said. "I'm just no longer afraid to walk away when it stops feeling like home." That was the difference. She hadn't built walls. She had built doors, with locks, with choices, with self-respect. Because she understood now, presence isn't love. Familiarity isn't love. Staying isn't love. Love is feeling seen without having to disappear to be accepted. And one day, if love found her again, she wouldn't just hope to be chosen. She would choose herself first. Choose peace, choose mutual effort, choose emotional honesty, because healing didn't make her bitter, it made her clear. And in that clarity, she found something better than closure, freedom. When love loses its voice, betrayal often speaks. In its place, but sometimes the most powerful healing begins when you stop waiting for them to hear you and start listening to yourself. Subscribe for more stories that uncover the broken truth.